That night, my husband was in the shower. His smartphone lit up, the screen, displaying a message from a contact named Prime Courier, Dispatch. I want to see you. A cold smile played on my lips as I replied, come on over. Hey, my wife's not home. When the doorbell rang a short while later, my husband's face froze in a mask of pure terror. Before the story begins, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe. That evening, a cold, drizzling rain fell, making the air in the bedroom feel colder than usual. The clock on the wall already pointed to 11 p.m. I was propped up against the headboard, a novel I'd just bought yesterday in my hands. The house was silent, save for the sound of the shower running in the bathroom. My husband, Kevin, had come home late, washing away the grime of a long day. He'd said he was swamped with a project that had to be finished by the end of the month. Believing him completely, I had simply been a good wife and heated up the kettle for him. Our marriage was still in its third year. Kevin was a meticulous man, the type who always strived for perfection. He rarely got angry. His words were always gentle, and he never forgot a small gift on payday. But recently, I'd been feeling an invisible wall between us. He was too gentle, too considerate, almost as if he were hiding some great transgression. A wife's intuition is rarely wrong, but I didn't want to be the kind of woman who accuses her partner without proof. I always tried to think with cool logic. Just as I turned a page, a bright light from the other side of the bed caught my eye. Kevin's smartphone, sitting on his nightstand, was illuminated. Normally, I had no interest in his phone. We had an unspoken agreement to respect each other's privacy. I never went through his briefcase, and he never peeked at my messages. But tonight, for some reason, a powerful impulse rose from the pit of my stomach, urging me to look at that glowing screen. I slowly set my book down. The sound of water from the bathroom was continuous, a clear sign he was still showering. I shifted my body to his side of the bed, trying not to make a sound. Was it an urgent message from the office? Or just a notification from an online retailer? A quick glance would be enough. A text message notification was displayed on the screen. The contact name was utterly mundane, Prime Courier, Dispatch. At first, I wondered what a delivery service would want so late at night. A forgotten package? A notice about tomorrow's delivery? But when my eyes fell on the message preview, displayed beneath the contact name, my heart felt as if it had stopped for several seconds. The words written there were short, but they carried a faively getminizalablize, devastating force. I want to see you. I froze beside the bed, the air catching in my throat. I stared without blinking. As the screen slowly dimmed and then went dark, my logical mind began to spin at high speed, connecting the puzzle pieces that had been scattered in my head. No. Courier service sends a message saying, I want to see you to a client at 11 o'clock at night. It was absolutely impossible. There was only one explanation. That made sense. The contact name was a fake. In the event I ever glanced at his phone, Kevin had disguised another woman's contact information under the name of a courrier service. Rage, disappointment, and heartache assaulted me all at once. My hands began to tremble. I was seized by the impulse to kick down the bathroom door, slam his phone in his face, and expose his lies. I wanted to see his face crumble when his deception was revealed. I wanted to scream and beat my fists against his chest. But I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. I closed my eyes, calming the storm of emotions raging within me. No. I can't do something stupid. If I confronted him now, he would just serve up 1,000 excuses to get away with it. A misdirected text from the courier, a friend borrowing his phone as a prank. He could say anything. A man who is good at cheating is also incredibly skilled at twisting the facts and painting his wife as a jealous, crazy woman. I opened my eyes again. My gaze had turned cold and calculating. I had to find out who was on the other side of that contact. I would trap them both in the blonde, very game they had created. I glanced again at the darkened smartphone. I knew his passcode, but I didn't need to unlock it. Modern smartphones have a feature that allows you to reply to messages directly from the lock screen. I double-tapped the screen to wake it. I long pressed the notification from Prime Courier, dispatch, and a keyboard appeared at the bottom of the screen. My fingers hovered over the letters. What should I write? If I sent words of anger or asked, "Who is this?" his lover would immediately realize it was the wife holding the phone. She would instantly retreat and erase all traces of their affair. I had to pretend to be Kevin. I had to dangle a bait she couldn't refuse. With a cold smile on my lips and a heart as cold as ice, I carefully typed out a reply, choosing each word to sound like a man testing the waters. "Wife's not home tonight. Come over." I reread the sentence. It was short, to the point, and incredibly tempting. Without a moment's hesitation, I hit send. The message slid away. The check mark turned blue, indicating it had been sent and, most likely, already read. That woman was probably clutching her phone, waiting for a reply from my husband. After sending the message, I immediately pressed the power button, darkening the HU's screen again. I placed the smartphone back in its original position, noting its exact angle and distance from the nightstand lamp. Kevin was a very observant man. If the phone was even slightly out of place, he would suspect someone had touched it. I quickly returned to my side of the bed. I straightened the blanket, picked up my novel again, and placed it on my chest. I turned off my nightstand lamp, leaving only the faint light seeping from under the bathroom door. I turned my body away from the bathroom, closed my eyes, and began to breathe deeply and regularly, as if in a deep sleep. A few minutes later, the sound of the shower stopped. The bathroom door creaked, open. I heard Kevin's light footsteps on the bedroom floor. A cool wisp of air, carrying the scent of soap, spread through the room. In the darkness, behind my Tangslash eyelids, a faint smile formed on my lips. The game had just begun. Tonight, I would watch and see just how skillfully my husband could hide his rotten true nature. Kevin emerged from the bathroom with only a towel wrapped around his waist. Through the narrow slit of my slightly parted eyelashes, I watched his packet reflection in the dresser mirror, which was positioned directly across from the bed. The streetlight filtering through the gap in the curtains was more than enough to clearly capture his silhouette. He dried his hair with a small towel and approached the nightstand. Just as I expected, the very first thing he did after his shower was check his phone. He picked up the slim device and touched the screen. His face was instantly illuminated by its light. I held my breath, waiting for his reaction. Through the mirror's reflection, I could clearly see his expression change dramatically. In a matter of seconds, the relaxed smile he had been wearing vanished without a trace. His eyes were wide as he stared at the screen. The hand holding the smartphone seemed to tremble slightly. He swiped at the screen quickly, a look of disbelief on his face. His complexion, which should have been flushed from the hot shower, was now drained of all color, turning deathly white. He swallowed hard, and his body went rigid. With an extremely slow and cautious movement, he turned to look at me, trying to confirm if I was truly asleep. I didn't move a muscle, continuing to feign the most natural breathing I could manage. Inside his head right now, he must be desperately trying to figure out how a reply was sent from his phone while he was in the bathroom. Was his phone hacked? Or did his wife send it? Panic was radiating from his entire body. He started pacing aimlessly near the closet, running a hand through his hair in frustration. He looked terrified, likely imagining his mask being torn off tonight. The tension in the bedroom reached its peak. Just then, shattering the night's silence, the doorbell rang out loud and clear. Ding dong. Kevin's feet stopped dead. He froze on the spot like a statue of ice, his eyes filled with terror as he stared at the bedroom door. The bell rang again. Ding dong. It was the perfect time for me to react. I let out a slow groan, pretending to have just woken from a deep sleep. I stretched, rubbed my eyes, and looked up at him. Kevin? I called out, my voice thick with feigned sleepiness. Who could? Are that be so late? You should get the door. It might be something important. My voice made Kevin jump in surprise. He turned to me, forcing a smile onto his face. Oh, honey, I'll get it. You can go back to sleep. It's nothing. His voice was shaky and broken. No, it's not okay. I'm coming with you. What if it's someone dangerous? It's almost midnight, I replied, throwing back the blanket and getting out of bed. Hearing that I was coming with him, the panic on Kevin's face intensified. He hurriedly and clumsily pulled on a t-shirt and shorts. No, I mean, you wait. Here. I'll go check. It's cold out, he said, speaking rapidly, desperately, trying to stop me. Don't be silly, let's go together, I said in a firm tone that left no room for argument. I motioned for him to go first, and we left the bedroom. Kevin had no choice but to follow behind me, his feet dragging as if he were being led to his execution. I could feel the terror radiating from him. He must be imagining his mistress standing at the front door, ready to destroy the web of lies he had so carefully constructed. We reached the living room. I switched on the main light, and Kevin approached the door with incredibly slow, hesitant steps, as if walking the Green Mile. With a trembling hand, he grasped the doorknob and turned it. The door swung open slowly. A blast of cold night air rushed into the house. Standing on our dimly lit porch, under the glow of the street lamp, was a man. Not the beautifully dressed woman Kevin must have been dreading, but a young man in a red courier service jacket. He wore a half helmet with the visor flipped up, and in his hands, he held a small package. Kevin let out a long, shuddering breath as if he had just been granted a stay of execution. The tension drained from his shoulders. He looked at the man before him, looking as though he might cry with relief. Good evening. Is this the Johnson residence? The deliveryman asked, his voice a little weary. Yes, that's right. That's me, Kevin replied, his voice suddenly loud and full of confidence. Package for you, sir, the man said, holding out the small box. Kevin accepted it with a beaming smile. Then he turned to me, standing behind. Tim, see, honey? I told you. Oh, this is my usual delivery guy. He's a real hard worker. He sent me a message earlier this evening, said he'd be passing through the area and could drop off some coffee beans I ordered. Kevin spun his lie with remarkable fluency, constructing it perfectly. He was convinced his excuse was a plausible enough cover for the text message from earlier. He felt he had won tonight's game. Oh, is that so? Thank you for working so late, I said, offering the delivery man a pleasant smile. But behind that smile, my eyes were sharply observing the man in the red jacket. I am a person who doesn't miss the smallest details. The man before me was wearing a courier's jacket, but there was something very off about his demeanor. A real delivery driver working late into the night would be exhausted and eager to finish his shift. He would hand over the package, ask for a signature or a photo, and leave immediately. But this man was different. From the moment the door opened, his eyes weren't on my husband or the package. His gaze was ravenously scanning the interior of our home. He glanced up at the porch ceiling, where our security camera was mounted. Then his eyes moved inside, taking in the layout of the living room, the position of the sofa, the TV stand, and the doorway connecting the living and dining rooms. This man hadn't come to deliver a package. This man was conducting reconnaissance. He was memorizing the layout of our home. Thanks a lot. Get home safe, Kevin said, handing him a $50 bill as a placid tip. Thank you, sir. Have a good night, the delivery man replied. He gave a slight nod, turned, and walked toward his motorcycle, which was parked a short distance from our gate. Kevin closed and locked the door. He turned and wrapped me in a tight hug. I'm sorry, honey. This delivery guy disturbed your sleep. Come on, let's go back to bed. His voice was cheerful, a stark contrast to his earlier panic. He let me go first, toying with the package in his hands, likely thinking he was the cleverest man in the world for having so thoroughly deceived his wife. I stood in the living room for a moment, watching his retreating back. Kevin was not as stupid as I thought. That woman had devised an alibi. If the situation at the house was unsafe, or if her coded message was read by someone else, she would have a deliveryman bring a package as a cover. This game was far more cunning and dangerous than I had imagined, but they had picked the wrong opponent. I would never allow these people to trample on my pride in my own home. Savor that feeling of relief for tonight, darling, I thought, a cold smile forming in my mind. By tomorrow morning, I will find out the true identity of that fake courier. I promise you that. I turned off the living room lights and followed Kevin into the bedroom. He lay down on the bed, and within minutes, his steady breathing filled the room. He was sleeping soundly, as if he didn't have a single sin to hide beneath that warm blanket. That man was utterly convinced he had completely fooled me with his cheap theatrics about coffee beans and a late-night delivery driver. From my side of the bed, I watched his sleeping face. My feelings were a mixture of contempt, anger, and a growing, burning curiosity. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 11:30 p.m. The rain outside had stopped completely, leaving behind a bone-chilling air and the damp smell of earth seeping through the crack in the window. In my mind, the gaze of the man in the red jacket replayed over and over. That was not the look of someone tired of delivering packages. It was the look of a Kreese scout. I had to act now, before that man's trail disappeared into the night. Very slowly, I slipped out from under the blanket. I was careful with my steps, ensuring the floorboards didn't creak. I took a warm jacket from the closet and put it on to ward off the cold. Before leaving the room, I glanced at Kevin one last time. His snoring was still regular, perfect. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the full bag of trash from the bin. If Kevin were to wake up and look for me, I had a perfectly reasonable excuse. I remembered the trash collectors were coming in the morning and couldn't sleep, worried I'd forgotten to take it out to the curb. I opened the front door, taking care to make sure it didn't squeak. The night air immediately brushed against my face. I put the trash bag in the bin by the Powser gate. Then, my eyes swept the quiet, dimly lit residential street. There was nothing but a row of silent houses and the yellowish glow of the streetlights. My gaze locked onto a shadow at the corner of an alley about 50 yards from my plaque house. Under the flickering streetlight, I saw the silhouette of the man and 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 the silhouette of the billet van. Red jacket. He was still there. It seemed his motorcycle had broken down. He was hunched over, fiddling with the engine while repeatedly kicking the starter. But the engine wouldn't catch, only making a sound like a rough cough. This was a chance I couldn't miss. I zipped up my jacket and walked swiftly but silently along the sidewalk. As I got closer, I could clearly hear the foul curses escaping his lips. He was so engrossed in trying to fix his broken bike that he didn't notice me until I was standing right behind him. "Having some trouble with your bike this late at night?" I said, my voice quiet and cold, breaking the silence of the night. The man jumped, startled. He stumbled backward, nearly bumping into a utility pole. His expression tensed when he saw my face. He undoubtedly recognized me as the wife of the man he had visited just minutes ago, standing there with my arms crossed over my chest. "Ma'am, can I help you with something?" he asked, his voice trembling. He tried to smile, but it was stiff and forced. His eyes darted nervously around that quiet street, as if searching for an escape route. "You can drop the act," I said, taking a step forward to close the distance between us. "I know you're not a real delivery driver, and I know perfectly well that the 'I want to see you' message that came to my husband's phone an hour ago was sent from the number you're using. Did you think I was some blind woman who can't read?" The man's face turned even paler. He swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a delivery guy." "A message?" "I didn't send anything like that. You must be mistaken." He denied it in a strained voice, trying to play the part of an innocent man being wrongly accused. I smirked coldly. "Mistaken? Fine. If I'm mistaken, then let's clear this up at the police station right now. There's a precinct just around the corner that's open 24/7. I'll report you for sending sexually harassing messages to a residence number and for suspicious behavior. Oh, and don't forget, I have a screenshot of the message, your phone number, and crystal clear footage from my home security camera of your face as you were casing my house earlier. Are you ready to lose this precious job of yours and sleep behind bars?" My threat, delivered in a flat but lethal tone, instantly shattered his defense. He dropped the wrench he was holding onto the asphalt. His body was trembling. He put his hands together in front of his chest, a pathetic look on his face, like a child caught stealing candy. "Please, forgive me. Don't call the police. I'm broke. I'm just a messenger. I was paid to do this? He suddenly pleaded, his voice turning pitiful. I stared at him with sharp eyes, trying to read the truth behind his frantic, shifting gaze. Paid by whom? Tell me everything, honestly, or I'll scream right. Now, have the neighborhood security guard grab you and drag you to the police. Station myself. A woman named Jenna, he answered quickly, as if the words had been waiting on the tip of his tongue. She paid me. I don't know anything about their relationship. I'm just a freelance courier who needed the extra cash, she told to me to save Mr. Johnson's number and follow her instructions. When she asks me to send a coded message like the one earlier, it means she wants me to check if it's safe at his house. If I get a reply from Mr. Johnson, I just report back to her. But if the situation is dangerous or if his wife is home, I'm supposed to and visit with this coffee delivery as a cover so their identities aren't exposed. He explained everything in a rushed breath. His story sounded perfectly logical. All the puzzle pieces seemed to fall into place. My husband was having an affair with a cunning and calculating woman named Jenna, who was using a third party to keep their relationship secure. How much did she pay you for this dirty work? I asked in a contemptuous tone. $500 for each fake delivery. Please, ma'am, forgive me. I'll never do it again. I'll block Jenna's number tonight, he said, bowing his head. Repeatedly. I was silent for a moment, letting the night's quiet envelope us again. Something in my mind felt very strange. My intuition was telling me there was more to this man. He claimed to be a desperate poor man, but the leather jacket he wore, under his courier vest, looked quite expensive. He said he was scared, but he had given up his boss's name far too easily, without any resistance. A hired hand in the underworld would normally have more loyalty to protect his source of income, or at least try to lie a bit longer. But this man had surrendered after a single threat. However, I didn't want to show my suspicion of him at this point. I had to use this situation to my advantage. I needed a chess piece I could move to bring about the downfall of Jenna and my husband. Listen to me carefully, I said, pointing a finger directly at his face. I'll let you go tonight, but there is one condition, and it is absolutely non-negotiable. From this moment on, you stop working for that cheap woman. Jenna, you work for me. You will be my spy. Whatever plan she instructs you to carry out, you will report it to me first. Understood? The man nodded very quickly, looking both obedient and relieved. Yes, I understand. As long as I don't go to jail, I'll do anything you say, ma'am. I'll definitely help you trap those two. Good. Give me your phone, I commanded. With trembling hands, he fumbled in his pants pocket and handed me his phone. I saved my number in his contacts under an unsuspicious fake name. Then I handed the phone back to him. Don't even think about deceiving me or trying to run away. I've recorded your Hurley Blaze Dacho motorcycle's license plate, and I have more than enough powerful evidence to send you to prison at any time. Wait for my instructions tomorrow. I added one last threat to conclude our conversation. Yes, thank you so much for your kindness, ma'am, he said, bowing his head. Again and again. I turned my back and walked toward my house without looking back. The night wind blew stronger, piercing through the fabric of my jacket. In my mind, the name, Jenna, echoed like a slow-acting poison. My husband and his mistress had played with fire in my home. Now it was my turn to burn them both to ashes. But my suspicion about the delivery man had not faded at all. The man was too good an Emirates.com actor. There had to be a darker secret he was hiding from me. And by tomorrow morning, with the help of the only person in this world I could truly trust, I would uncover that truth. I quietly opened my front door, locked it securely, and returned to the bedroom, to sleep next to the man who would soon be weeping over his own foolishness. The next morning, the sun shone brightly, as if mocking the dark clouds that shrouded my heart. Kevin woke up with a wide smile, acting as sweet as ever. As I was making breakfast in the kitchen, he hugged me from behind, kissed the top cuption of my head, and whispered words of love that now sounded like a broken record. Your cooking always smells so good, honey. Oh, by the way, I might be a little late again tonight. I have a monthly performance review with the board, and I absolutely can't miss it, he said, buttering a piece of toast at the table. I suppressed a wave of nausea rising from the pit of my stomach. I knew that Board meeting was a complete lie. He was surely planning to meet Jenna. I forced a sincere-looking smile and nodded. Okay, honey. Work hard. Don't forget to eat lunch. After Kevin left for work, I didn't waste a second. I quickly got ready, changed into comfortable clothes, and grabbed the box of coffee beans Kevin had left on the living room table last night. I put the box in my handbag, along with a memo, on which I had written down the tracking number from the box and the license plate number of last night's deliveryman's motorcycle. The number was already seared into my memory. I backed my car out of the garage and drove through the increasingly congested city streets. My destination this morning was singular: Megan's house. Megan was my best friend from high school. She was a single woman who worked as a freelance graphic designer, but behind that job, she possessed a special skill not many people knew about. She was an expert in digital forensics. If you wanted to know someone's secrets in cyberspace, Megan was the best person to uncover them down to their very roots. After a 30-minute drive, I arrived at Megan's house. She opened the door, still looking disheveled, with thick glasses perched on her nose and a cup of steaming black coffee in her hand. Hey, Emily, what's up? So early? And without calling? Did something happen? She asked, frowning. This isn't the time for small talk, Megan. My marriage is on the brink of collapse. I need your help right now, I said with a serious face, stepping inside without waiting for her to invite me in. Hearing the urgency in my voice, Megan's expression immediately turned serious. She set her coffee cup on the table and locked the front door. Sit down, tell me everything, from beginning to end. What did your husband do this time? I sat on her living room sofa and began to recount the events of last night, not omitting a single detail. The message from the courier, the reply I sent, the arrival of the man in the red jacket, and the results of my interrogation at the Planks Alley corner. Megan listened to my story intently. When I mentioned the name, Jenna, her eyes widened with surprise and anger. Men are all the same, aren't they? Always thinking with the wrong head. Megan spat out emotionally. So, what do you need me to do? I took the memo from my bag and placed it on the table. This is the mistress's name, Jenna. This is the hired courier's motorcycle license plate. And this is the tracking number from the fake package he brought last night. Something's off. About that delivery guy. He confessed way too easily when I threatened him. I need you to find out who this Jenna woman really is, and what other connection she has with that delivery guy. Megan grinned. That's my specialty. Give me a minute. Megan turned on her desktop computer, which was equipped with 2 large monitors. Her fingers began to dance across the keyboard with astonishing speed. She opened various application windows, typed in keywords, searched for the Breton vehicle number through public databases, and tracked the name Jenna through various interconnected social media platforms. I sat next to her, watching the window data, flashing rows of numbers and images on the monitors, trying to suppress my pounding heart. After about 45 minutes, Megan let out a long breath and stopped typing. Bingo! I found something very interesting, Emily. And brace yourself, because this truth might shock you and make you sick to your stomach. Megan pointed to one of the monitors. I leaned in. Displayed on the screen was the social media account of a beautiful, heavily made-up woman dressed in expensive clothes. Her name was Jenna Miller. Her profile made her look like a wealthy, single woman who traveled abroad frequently. This is Jenna, Megan said. But don't be fooled by this lavish appearance. I tracked down some old photos her school friends tagged her in years ago. Look at this picture. Megan opened an old, low-resolution photo. It was a picture of a modest wedding, held in front of a small house. Jenna was wearing an inexpensive white dress, smiling broadly as she linked arms with the groom. My eyes widened so much they felt like they were going to pop out of their sockets. My heart pounded, furiously. The man standing next to Jenna in that wedding photo was the exact same man in the red jacket who came to my house last night. He was Cody. Wait, that's the delivery guy, I stammered. So the delivery guy who claimed to be a mere messenger is actually Jenna's legal husband, Megan said, her face grim. That's right. They're married. And, from the digital footprints I found, they have a mountain of online loans. They're not rich, Jenna's lavish life on social media is just a facade to attract the attention of rich, sleazy men. This isn't just an affair, Emily. Your husband is the target of a badger game. Megan's words hit me like a hammer. It all made perfect sense. No wonder that delivery guy had been so carefully observing the state of my house. No wonder. He had confessed Jenna's name so easily when I threatened him because it was part of their backup plan. If they were caught, Jenna's role was to seduce my husband, while her husband, Cody, was tasked with monitoring the situation, memorizing the house layout, and confirming when the house would be empty. But why did they need my house empty? A badger game is usually carried out in a hotel or an apartment. Why did they insist on it being in my house? My thoughts suddenly turned to the package still in my handbag. I quickly took out the box and placed it on my lap. Emily, what's that? Megan asked, frowning. This is the coffee package Cody delivered last night. My husband thinks this is just an alibi for him to meet with her, I replied, examining the cardboard box, which was securely sealed with clear tape. I took a pair of scissors from Megan's desk and cut the tape. I opened the lid. Inside was a silver foil package of what looked like pure, ground coffee. The aroma was incredibly rich, but as I lifted the package, its weight felt a little strange. I very carefully tore open the top of the plastic packaging. I poured some of the coffee grounds onto a small saucer on Megan's desk. Using the tip of the scissors, I sifted through the dark mound of coffee. Suddenly, the scissor tip hit a hard object hidden at the bottom of the package. Megan and I looked at each other with tense expressions. Using 2 fingers, I pulled the object out from the coffee grounds. It was tightly wrapped in a very thin, waterproof plastic to keep it clean. I wiped off the remaining coffee grounds from the outside of the plastic and stared at the object, feeling a wave of dread rise through my veins. It was a tiny wireless listening device, and a hidden camera, no bigger than an adult's thumb. On its tip was a tiny indicator, light, slowly blinking red. The device was active, recording every sound in its vicinity. Oh my God, Megan whispered, covering her mouth in shock. They were planning to plant a hidden camera in your house. They were going to film your husband's affair in his own home and use it as a weapon for a multi-million-dollar blackmail scheme. Your husband, he's a complete idiot, blinded by lust. I clenched the hidden camera so tightly my knuckles turned white. The pain of my knuckles languid. Husband's betrayal had now turned into a soul-searing rage. My husband wasn't just a cheater. He had also invited a grave danger into my home, threatening our property and safety. If I hadn't found this out, the home I had worked so hard to build would have become the scene of a shameful blackmail incident. I stared at Megan's monitor, which still displayed Jenna's deceitful face, and then back at the hidden camera in my hand. That foolish man, my husband, I think he was the star of this adulterous drama. Cody and Jenna might think they were brilliant con artists about to become rich. They were all wrong. From this moment on, this stage was mine. I would be the mastermind who would lead them, all to a ruin they could never have imagined. I was not going to let this filthy gang of swindlers get a single cent of my money. And as for my husband, I would make sure he received a parting gift that would smash his arrogance into a million pieces. Megan, I said, my voice cold and full of authority, help me make a plan. We're going to lure these hunters into a trap of their own making. I'm going to make them beg for my forgiveness. I stared silently at the tiny hidden camera resting on the saucer on Megan's HR desk. Such a small object, designed to destroy my life, strip away my security, and steal the assets I had worked so hard to build over the years. The boiling rage in my chest slowly transformed into an ice-cold resolve. I would not let a cheap con artist couple and a foolish husband destroy what was mine. Megan took a pair of tweezers and very carefully turned the tiny object over, as if handling a time bomb that could explode at any moment. She observed a string of tiny serial numbers printed on the back of the device and entered them into a search engine on her computer. Her fingers moved with nimble grace, searching for security flaws in the cheap hardware that was frequently sold on the black market. This device uses a short-range wireless connection and has a small internal storage, Megan explained, staring at a monitor filled with lines of code. But I have a much better idea, Emily. Instead of tampering with this camera and risking them finding out that we're onto them, it's better to attack the device. They're using themselves. I frowned, trying to understand my friend's plan. Attack their device? How? The only information I have is that man Cody's phone number. A triumphant smile spread across Megan's face. That's more than enough. I'll create a fake link. You'll send that link to Cody in a text message. You'll tell to him it's a schedule of your business trip or a list of your activities while you're away, so he can monitor when your house will truly be empty. The moment he clicks that link, a small program will infiltrate his phone without him noticing. That program will give me full access to eavesdrop on his phone's microphone. We'll be able to hear every conversation he has with his wife. The plan sounded incredibly audacious, but at the same time, absolutely perfect. I agreed without a second thought. While Megan worked on planting the program, I gathered my courage and went home, so as not to arouse my husband's suspicion of my absence. When I arrived, Kevin was sitting in the living room watching TV. His face was completely relaxed. The stress that had plagued him last night seemingly vanished. Hearing the door open, he turned and greeted me with a warm smile. "Where have you been, honey?" I woke up from a nap and looked all over the house. "For you," he asked in a loving tone. I stared at his face for a few seconds, trying to find even a flicker of guilt or remorse in his eyes. But there was nothing, just a mask of lies, skillfully worn. I felt sick again, but I forced the corners of my mouth up into a smile, just as sweet as his. I stopped by Megan's house. We had a little meeting about a side project, I replied, placing my handbag on the table. "Oh, and I have some news. The company just assigned me to a business trip this weekend. There's an opening ceremony for a new branch, and a representative from my team has to attend. I'll probably have to stay overnight there." Kevin's eyes instantly lit up. He quickly tried to hide it with a fake, sad expression. "Really? This weekend? What a shame, I was planning to take you out for a romantic dinner. But if you have to go for work, I understand. Your job is important. Just take care of yourself over there." "Of course, honey. I always take care of myself," I replied in a gentle tone. But in my mind, I was already planning how to destroy his future. After that short conversation, I went into the bedroom and locked the door from the inside. I took out my phone and opened the chat screen with Cody. I very carefully typed out a message, making sure my tone sounded like a woman in Praterda's control. "I'm leaving for my trip tomorrow, Friday morning, and will be back Sunday afternoon. The house will be completely empty over the weekend. Here's my detailed itinerary so you know exactly when to be on standby. Pass this information on to that woman, Jenna. And remember, you are to report her every move to me." After typing the message, I inserted the fake link Megan had sent me just a few minutes earlier. I pressed send and waited with a slightly pounding heart. Not even 5 minutes later, the message showed a blue check mark. Cody had read it. A few seconds later, a reply came from him. "Understood, ma'am. I have reviewed the schedule link. I will report this matter to Miss Jenna immediately. Please rest assured, I am on your side now." Reading that nauseating reply, I let out a cold laugh. He really thought I was a foolish wife who could be easily deceived. Soon after, my phone vibrated. It was a voice call from Megan. I immediately answered and put the phone to my ear. "Emily, the fish took the bait," Megan said in an excited whisper. "That idiot. Click the link. I've successfully infiltrated his phone system and remotely activated the microphone. Listen, I'm patching his audio into our call." Megan's voice disappeared, replaced by a quiet static. Then I heard the sound of a door being slammed shut, followed by footsteps and a woman's high-pitched laugh. It was unmistakably Jenna's voice. "So, honey, did that stupid wife really believe our little package act from last night?" Jenna asked in a cloyingly sweet, triumphant voice. 100%, replied a man's voice I immediately recognized as Cody's. "Not only that, she stopped me on the street and threatened me, told me to be that her spy. She really thought a cheap threat like that would make me betray you. What a dumb woman." They both burst out laughing. The sound was grating to my ears. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. "So, What's the plan now? Jenna asked again. I just got a message from the stupid wife, Cody said. She's going on a business trip from Friday to Sunday. The house will be empty. This is the perfect chance. Jenna, you contact that horny bastard Kevin and set up a meeting at his house on Friday night. Tell him you want to experience the thrill of doing it in his bedroom. Of course, that old fool will be overjoyed. He's easy to manipulate. Lots of money, but an empty head. Jenna chimed in with a contemptuous tone. Got it. While you two are getting busy in the living room or wherever, Cody continued, his voice filled with lust. Leave the back window near the kitchen slightly unlocked. I'll sneak in through that window. I'll grab any valuables I can find in his study. Then, I'll plant the hidden camera and listening device in the most strategic spot. Once we get video footage of them with their clothes off, we'll have a lethal weapon. How much are we going to squeeze out of him this time, honey? Jenna asked, her voice thick with greedy passion. At least $2 million, Cody replied firmly. That guy Kevin is a top manager at a major corporation. He'll do anything to avoid a scandal video, ruining his reputation and career. He'll pay any amount we demand to keep that video from getting into the hands of his wife or his company's board. Get that money, we're out of this town, and we start a new life. The call was then disconnected by Megan. Silence returned to my room, but my head was ringing violently. Their entire dirty plan had now been laid bare, in excruciating detail right in my ear. They weren't just con artists. They were dangerous criminals. Any last shred of pity I might have had for my husband had now completely vanished. He had invited hungry wolves into our home. He deserved every bit of the punishment that was coming for him. I stood up from the edge of the bed, walked to the dresser, and stared at my own reflection in the mirror. The eyes staring back at me were not those of a weak, helpless victim. They were the eyes of a hunter, ready to fire an arrow with precision into the heart of her enemy. The mastermind's game had just begun, and I would make sure this show ended in a tragedy they would never forget. The long-awaited Friday finally arrived. The weather this morning was slightly overcast, as if the universe itself was supporting the dark atmosphere creeping into my home. I woke up earlier than usual and started packing my clothes into a medium-sized suitcase. Work clothes, pants, pajamas, and toiletries, all packed with calm, methodical movements. Kevin stood in the bedroom doorway, observing my every move with an eye that hid a torrent of joy. He leaned against the doorframe, putting on an insufferably melancholic face. Do you really need to take such a big suitcase? It's only a 2-day trip, he said in a deliberately sad voice, as if he would miss me. I zipped up the suitcase, turned to him, and offered a gentle smile. I need to. Bring a couple of extra pairs of shoes for the ceremony. Besides, I want to be prepared in case my boss asks me to extend the trip for another assignment. Don't worry, I'll be back as soon as I'm done. Kevin walked over to me and pulled me into a tight hug. He kissed my forehead repeatedly. I'm going to miss you so much. This house will feel so quiet and empty without you. Take care of yourself and be sure to call me when you get there. The hypocrisy of his words made my stomach churn violently, but I forced myself not to push him away. I returned his embrace with equal force, perfectly playing the role of a wife who loved and trusted her husband completely. I'll miss you, too, honey. Don't forget to lock all the doors and windows at night. Take good care of our home while I'm away, I said, my tone intentionally meaningful. A test to see his reaction. Kevin just chuckled. Of course, honey. Our home is safe in my hands. The taxi I had pre-booked honked from the front of the house. I grabbed the handle of my suitcase and walked out to the porch. Kevin helped me put the suitcase in the trunk. After one last wave, I got into the taxi. The car slowly pulled away from our property. I could see Kevin's figure on the porch through the car window. He kept waving at me until the car turned the corner of the Cardick Street. But just before my car disappeared completely from his sight, I saw him frantically fumble in his pants pocket, pull out his phone, and put it to his ear. He couldn't wait to deliver the good news to Jenna that their biggest obstacle had left the house. We're not going to the airport, I told the taxi driver as soon as we left the Jana neighborhood. Change of plans. Please take me to this address. I held out my phone, displaying Megan's home address. The driver nodded in understanding and immediately turned the wheel. When I arrived at Megan's house, my friend was already waiting for me in the teed-of living room with a thick red file on the table. Inside that file was all the evidence we had gathered over the past 2 days, printouts of my text, conversations with Cody, photos from Jenna's fake profile, Cody and Jenna's official marriage certificate, detailed images of the listening device found in the coffee package, and a data storage chip containing the audio recording of the phone call where Cody and Jenna planned their extortion. "It's all ready, Emily," Megan said, her face tense and serious. "This is the ultimate weapon to bring them all down." "Thank you, Megan. You're truly the best friend I've ever had," I replied, patting her shoulder gratefully. "Now, let's take all this evidence where it belongs." The two of us headed to the police station, located not far from my Serrier neighborhood. Because the evidence we brought was so complete and systematic, involving elements of cybercrime and a very high-value extortion attempt, our report was immediately handled by a special investigations unit. I sat before a veteran detective in plain clothes with a very sharp gaze. I explained the entire situation calmly and chronologically, without any emotion or tears. I described how my husband had fallen into the trap of a woman named Jenna, how her husband had posed as a delivery man to monitor my house, and how they were planning to plant a hidden camera to blackmail my husband for millions. The detective listened to my explanation carefully, examining each piece of evidence I handed him from the red file. When he listened to the audio recording of the conversation where Cody and Jenna discussed their plan to break into my house that night, his expression turned very serious. "This is not just an affair, ma'am," the detective said in a solemn voice. "This is a premeditated crime. They can be charged with conspiracy to commit extortion, under penal code, violation of privacy laws for illegal recording, and attempted burglary. Since the main event is happening tonight, we have a chance to catch them red-handed." A plan for the sting operation was drawn up quickly and efficiently. The police decided to dispatch a small team of 4 plainclothes officers. They would not use a marked patrol car, but an unmarked black van disguised as an internet service technician's vehicle. As night fell, a light drizzle began to fall, making the atmosphere even darker and colder. Megan, myself, and 2 police officers were huddled inside the black van, parked about 3 houses down from mine. The van's engine was off, and its windows were heavily tinted, making it impossible for anyone to see inside. The Gretas and Praise. Other 2 officers were waiting in a sedan parked at the corner of the alley, blocking any potential escape route. The tension inside the van was so thick I could almost touch it. I stared straight at my house gate through a small gap in the window. The clock on my phone showed 9 p.m. My heart was beating in a rapid rhythm, pumping hot blood through my body. Before long, a white sedan slowly entered the residential street. The car moved, without a sound, and stopped right in front of my gate. The car's headlights were turned off. The driver's side door opened, and a woman with long hair got out. She was wearing a short, fiery red dress with a long coat over it to ward off the cold. Even from this distance, I could tell it was Jenna. She walked with a porting one, graceful gait, pulling her coat tighter around her body, and stood in front of my gate. Before she could even press the doorbell button, the front door swung wide open. My husband Kevin was standing in the doorway with a smile so wide, it showed all his teeth. He greeted the woman with a warm embrace, as if she were his long-lost true love. The 2 of them then went inside, and the front door was closed again. I held my breath. The empty stage of the play now had its main actors. "Female target is inside the house," one of the officers in the van said into his radio. "Awaiting movement from the male target, who will enter from the call-in rear." Just as they had planned on the phone, Jenna would first enter through the front door to distract my husband. Meanwhile, Cody would surely be looking for a way to sneak around to the back of the house to enter through the window that his wife had unlocked. 10 minutes passed, feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, a dark figure moving with great stealth emerged from the bushes of the empty lot, right next to my house. The figure was dressed all in black, with a hat pulled down low to hide most of his face. He vaulted over the not-so-high boundary wall with a practiced ease and dropped into my backyard. Second target confirmed. He's moving through the side yard towards the back, the officer reported, his voice quiet but firm. Ma'am, get ready. As soon as the male target is inside the house, we'll move in immediately. We're going to give them the surprise of their lives. I nodded firmly. My hand was gripping the van's door handle tightly. The fear that might have once been in my heart had now been completely replaced by a sense of satisfaction I had never felt before. Tonight, the truth would shatter. The lies. And I couldn't wait to see my husband's face when his arrogant mask was completely torn off in front of the law and in front of me. I'm ready, I whispered. This stage was now completely under my control. The air inside the van felt increasingly suffocating. My eyes were glued to the big screen of a small monitor held by one of the officers. The monitor was connected to a tiny wireless surveillance camera that Megan had planted near the kitchen's ventilation hood before we went to the police station this afternoon. Through that screen, I could clearly see the situation at the back of the house. The glass door to the backyard, which should have been tightly locked every night, was now slightly ajar, leaving a gap just big enough for an adult's arm to fit through. Jenna had performed her task very well. While seducing my husband as the front, she must have gone to the kitchen on the pretext of getting a drink, and used that opportunity to unlock the door. The dark figure who had just jumped over the wall was now slowly approaching that door. The man stood stealthily. He pushed the glass door to open it wider, and then tilted the upper half of his body inside. The movement was very quick, proving that this was not his fuga. In seconds, his entire body had successfully entered my kitchen. Second target is inside the house, the officer with the monitor reported, his voice calm but filled with vigilance. All units, take your positions. Wait for my signal. Cody tiptoed across the kitchen and headed towards the living room. He rummaged through a small backpack he was carrying and took out a device similar in shape to the recording device we had found in the coffee package. He began to look for a suitable angle, very carefully climbing onto a dining chair and sticking the device on top of a decorative shelf that directly faced the living room sofa. In that living room, on my favorite sofa, my husband and Jenna were sitting close together. The TV was turned up loud, deliberately to drown out any noise from outside. My husband seemed to be thoroughly enjoying every nauseating endearment and seduction Jenna was feeding him. They were completely unaware that a hidden camera had just been installed right above their heads, ready to record their every sordid act and turn it into a weapon for a multi-million-dollar blackmail scheme. After confirming that the camera was securely installed, Cody shifted his gaze to the door of my husband's study, located not far from the living room. Inside that room was a small safe where my husband kept securities, my mother-in-law's heirloom jewelry, and some spare cash. I knew that in addition to recording the video, Cody also intended to steal any easily transportable assets tonight. He's heading for the study, I informed the officer in a half-whisper, indicating Cody's destination. Now is the perfect time. The captain sitting in the front seat nodded firmly. Team 1, secure the front. Entrance. Team 2, secure the back. We're going in now. The officer sitting next to me opened the van's sliding door with a smooth motion. Megan and I also got out of the car. The damp night air immediately hit my face. We walked quickly towards my yard, making no sound. The two officers from the sedan waiting at the alley corner had already snuck towards the sedan waiting at the alley corner, backyard to cut off Cody's escape route. Meanwhile, the captain and I stood right in front of my front door. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was hitting my ribs. This was the moment I had been waiting for since last night. The moment I would shatter the false world that traitorous man had built. With a rush of adrenaline, my slightly trembling hand took the spare house key from my jacket pocket. I inserted the key into the lock, turned it twice, and then pushed down on the doorknob. The front door opened without a creak, as I always kept it well-oiled. We stepped into the dimly lit hallway. From the living room, I could clearly hear Jenna's saccharine voice and my husband's heavy breathing, overpowering the sound of the TV. I let the police officer go first, walking with a gait as graceful and confident as a queen in her throne room. I stood right in the doorway connecting the living room and the dining room. The two of them were sitting on the sofa, wrapped in an embrace. My husband's shirt was half unbuttoned, and Jenna's hand was stroking his chest. Their faces were close together, a sight that should have broken a wife's heart. But to me now, that scene was nothing more than a very cheap comedy show. I reached for the wall next to me and flipped the switch for the main light. The crystal chandelier on the living room ceiling lit up brilliantly, almost blindingly. The light suddenly slammed into their two faces. My husband and Jenna jumped in surprise, like two rats caught in the beam of a flashlight. They quickly broke their embrace and turned to look at me with wide eyes. Time seemed to stand still in that room. My husband stared at me, his mouth half open. His face, which had been flushed with passion just moments before, was now ashen, like a corpse just dug up from a grave. His eyes blinked, repeatedly, as if he was trying to wake himself up from a terrible nightmare. He couldn't believe that his wife, who was supposed to be on a business trip tonight, was suddenly standing before him with an ice-cold gaze. "Emily," my husband's voice sounded like a pathetic, whimpering cry. Weren't you on a business trip?" I smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach my eyes at all. "Surprise," I said, my tone flat, echoing through the room. At the same time, a loud crash came from the direction of the kitchen. The sound of something falling, followed by a muffled cry, and then the sound of a body being slammed hard against the floor. Cody, who had been trying to pry open the Lunu's study door, had been ambushed and subdued by the two police officers who entered. From the back, hearing the commotion, Jenna leaped up from the sofa. Her beautiful face was now covered in an extraordinary panic. She stared wide-eyed towards the kitchen, then looked at me, breathless. Her act as a glamorous woman had instantly crumbled. She tried to look for an escape route, but the police captain had already moved forward from behind me, blocking the only exit through the front door. "Freeze! Police!" the captain shouted, his voice like a thunderclap. The two officers from the kitchen dragged in Cody, who was handcuffed behind his back. The man in the black jacket struggled with what little strength he had left, but the officer's grip was too strong for him to resist. When Cody was dragged into the living room, and his face became clearly visible under the light of the lamp, Jenna's body instantly went limp. She realized that their game had ended in complete ruin and collapsed onto the marble floor. Still not understanding what was happening, my husband stared at Cody with a foolish, dazed expression. Police? What's going on? Who is this man? Why is he in my house? My husband asked, his voice trembling violently. He turned his gaze to me, as if seeking an explanation. I crossed my arms over my chest and slowly approached him. I looked straight into the depths of his terrified eyes. "You want to know who this man caught in our house is, darling?" I asked, my voice calm but sharp enough to slice through. To his pride. "This is the man who delivered a coffee package to our house a few days ago. He's also the man who was about to install a hidden camera in this room to record your little lovemaking session." I shifted my gaze to Jenna, who was still trembling on the floor, and then looked back at my husband. "And there's one more very important thing you should know, my very clever husband. That man in the black jacket is the legal husband of the beautiful woman you were just holding on the sofa." Those words hit my husband's face like a powerful, invisible punch. He staggered backward, his back hitting the arm of the sofa. His breathing became ragged. His self-esteem as a successful man who felt he could play with women had now been shattered into a million pieces. He finally realized that he wasn't a hunter, having an affair with a beautiful young woman, but a foolish lamb that had been led to the slaughter all along by a pair of cunning con artists. "No, that's impossible," my husband stammered, tears welling up in his eyes. He looked at Jenna with a look of disbelief. You're married? You set me up?" Jenna didn't answer. She just bowed her head deeply, hiding her shame. I looked at my husband, who looked so pathetic and pitiful before me. There was no love or respect left, only contempt. I had held the key to destroying them all from the very beginning. The living room, which should have been the warmest place in the house, now felt as cold as a torture chamber. The police officers acted quickly and professionally. They collected the 2020 evidence, including the hidden camera Cody had managed to install on the decorative shelf and the lock-picking tools he had in his backpack. Megan stood in the corner of the room with a satisfied look on her face, holding up her phone to record parts of the arrest. She wanted to make sure that none of them could twist the facts later. Cody and Jenna were ordered to stand side by side. The faces of the con artist couple looked utterly pathetic. The arrogance and lighthearted laughter I had heard on the phone had now turned into terrified whimpers. Cody and Jenna Miller, you are both under arrest on suspicion of attempted extortion with threats, invasion of privacy through illegal recording in a private residence, and attempted burglary, the captain announced, his voice firm and echoing through the room. We have all the evidence regarding your conversations and malicious intent. You can give a more detailed explanation later in the interrogation room. Cody tried one last act of defiance, glaring at me with eyes full of rage. You, she-devil, you set us up. You deliberately gave us a fake schedule to make sure we were in this house, he shouted desperately. I returned his gaze with complete calm. I don't recall inviting you into my home and asking you to install a hidden camera. That dirty idea came from your own heads. I just rolled out the red carpet to get you to prison a little. Faster. Take them away. 2 police officers immediately led Cody and Jenna out of my house toward the black van waiting outside. Jenna's pathetic cries for forgiveness echoed until they were drowned out by the sound of the car's engine as it drove away, cutting through the night's darkness. Now the only people left in the living room were me, Megan, and my husband. Kevin was still standing frozen near the sofa. His face was covered in a cold sweat. He looked around the now very quiet room, as if still trying to process the storm that had hit his life in less than 15 minutes. Suddenly, he collapsed onto the marble floor. He moved forward on his knees and towards me and tried to hug my legs. His sobs broke out, the sound pathetic and piercing in the night's silence. Emily, I love you. Please forgive me, he whimpered, his voice broken. His tears wet my pants. I was an idiot, a complete idiot. I had no idea she was a con artist. She seduced me. She blinded me. I swear to God, I will never make this mistake again. Please, don't leave me. You saved me from being blackmailed. That's proof that you still love me, right? That you still care about me? Hearing the words coming out of his mouth, I felt an immense sense of disgust rising from the pit of my stomach. This man had such nauseating confidence. He thought that everything I had done tonight, the entire complex plan I had orchestrated, was to save him because I still loved him. I took a step back, shaking his hands off my legs with a violent motion. I looked down at him with a gaze full of contempt, the kind of look one gives to dirt on the bottom of a shoe. Save you? I repeated, my voice ice cold. The sound of it made my husband instantly stop crying and look up at me with a face full of terror. Do you really think I did all of this to save you? You? I let out a small laugh, a very dry, empty sound. Listen to me carefully, Kevin. I said firmly, using his name directly instead of the affectionate terms I had always used. I reported them to the police not to protect your career or your reputation. I did it to protect my house, to protect my pride, because I would not let a dirty thief enter my domain and take a single cent of the money in my Brady safe. If they had blackmailed you in a hotel room and drained all the money from your personal accounts, I wouldn't have cared one bit. I would have quietly sipped my tea and watched your downfall with great satisfaction. Kevin's face turned ashen again. My words had shattered the last remnants of hope he might have had. You can't mean that. We've been married for 3 years. We vowed to forgive each other, he said, his voice trembling. That vow was broken by you yourself the night you first replied to that woman's message, I retorted mercilessly. I gave Megan a signal with my eyes. Megan understood immediately. She went to the hallway and returned a moment later with the medium-sized suitcase I had put in the taxi trunk this morning. Megan placed the suitcase in front of Kevin. That's your suitcase, not mine, I said, pointing at it. Megan helped pack most of your clothes and personal belongings while you were at the office. Your car keys, the credit cards in my name, and all access to this house have already been revoked by me. Kevin stared at the suitcase with wide eyes. Emily, you're kicking me out? This is our house. My house. Correction. I said curtly. The deed to this house is in my name. I bought it. With my own savings before we got married. As of tonight, you have no place in this house. I walked over to the glass coffee table in the living room, picked up a thin blue file I had prepared this afternoon, and threw it on the floor in front of his kneeling form. And that is my parting gift to a foolish husband who doesn't know how to cherish his wife, I continued. It's a draft of our divorce papers. My lawyer will contact your office on Monday morning. If you try to complicate this divorce process, I will not hesitate for a second to give a copy of the recording of you having an affair with a member of a blackmail ring to your company's board. I'm sure they won't be too keen on a manager who has such low morals and is so easily deceived. Kevin's body collapsed completely onto the floor. He covered his face with both hands. From behind his palms came a very loud, painful cry of regret. He had lost everything tonight. He had lost the assets he wanted to protect. He had lost his beautiful mistress who turned out to be a con artist. And worst of all, he had lost the wife who had always stood behind him. Megan, please help Mr. Johnson carry his suitcase to the front gate. Make sure he doesn't leave anything behind in my house, I ordered. I turned my back, leaving Kevin still wailing over his foolishness in the living room, and walked up the stairs to my bedroom on the second floor. I never once looked back. My back was straight, and my steps felt incredibly light. Tonight, the storm had passed. This house might feel very quiet starting tomorrow, but at least the air inside it would be free from the smell of lies and betrayal, and it would feel clean again. I quietly closed my bedroom door. The game was over, and the mastermind had succeeded in closing this show with a glorious victory.